Hello, and welcome to the One Life Church devotional series where we cover the entire Bible in 20 months. Well, today's readings are 1 Samuel chapter 2 and Mark chapter 12. Now, in 1 Samuel 2, Hannah, who has just had this miraculous baby, bursts into prayer. And she starts by rejoicing, in other words, giving thanks. What a great way for us to start our prayer life. And then she moves into praise where she begins to say, there's no one beside you, there's no God like you. Great way to start praying, saying thank you and then exalting God for all his greatness. And then she declares this truth. She says, warriors are broken, but those who stumbled are armed. She basically says, God exalts the humble and he humbles the proud. And, the whole chapter ends with that. She gives example after example, but then there's a real life outworking of that truth, of God exalting humble people and bringing down the dangerous and bringing down the proud. Now, when you have a snapshot at history, and you just say, whoa, it looks like the bad guys are winning, you can make a very bad deduction that God's out of control. But if you look at the whole of history, God gives us a free will, and then he humbles the proud and he exalts the humble. And so this is what happens. This is the example. Eli has two sons. He's the priest at the time. Those sons, Phinehas and Hophni, treat the people of Israel badly. They steal their food. They even sleep with the women who are working there in the temple. They're horrific. Eli gets to hear about it. He tries to stop them. They say, basically, mind your own business, old man. God comes to Eli and says, this is not acceptable. They think that I'm not here. They think that I'm just going to let this happen. Eventually, he says, I'm going to kill them both on the same day. Same day, judgment is coming to them. Saying, God, that's a little bit rough. Now, when you look at the whole span of history, God ultimately exalts the humble and brings down the proud. Now, when we move to the New Testament today, Mark chapter 12, Jesus is attacked by chief priests, Pharisees, Sadducees in different ways, and sort of just shows their colors as Phinehas and Hophni type priests. And then this priest comes to Jesus at the very end and says to him, so now tell me, what's the greatest commandment? Now you're thinking that he's going to try and trip him up with the denarii, should we pay taxes to Caesar like the Pharisees had, or that, they'll come against them with the story that the Sadducees did, which was, is there resurrection? Is there marriage in the resurrection? And Jesus dealt with all those earlier in the chapter. But this particular guy comes and says, what's the greatest commandment? Jesus says to him, hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one God. He was quoting the Shema. And then he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart and mind and strength and soul. And the second, just in case you want to know what the second greatest is, love your brother as yourself. And the guy says, whoa, I understand that the whole law is summed up in those two commandments. You know what Jesus says to him? He says, you are not far from the kingdom of heaven. Incredible. So Jesus, he looks, I'm telling you, he scans those who are engaged in spiritual pursuit, those like Phinehas and Hophni, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, who are self-absorbed. They've got hard hearts and they don't really want to know Jesus. They just want to, have a position of authority and a prominent place in society. Jesus says, eventually, you're going to have to stop playing your games and you're going to meet me. But unfortunately, that meeting of Jesus will be in judgment. And then to the downtrodden, those who are humble, those who are desperately seeking him, he says, I'm going to show myself to you. I love these two chapters. I mean, at first glance, you look at them and you think, how can God allow Phinehas and Hophni, Pharisees, Sadducees to represent him? They don't represent him. They're masquerading under the guise of religion. And if you take a snapshot of the church when those guys are leading, or of religion when those guys are in office, it looks like God's out of control. But he says, no. Ask Hannah. No. At the end of the day, God says, you got to stop playing that game. And it's only the humble, those who are really seeking after God, that he's going to reveal himself to. So I trust that you have a good day today. God bless you.